Hello guys, Termex here, and welcome back to another New World video. Now today's going to be an interesting topic because I've seen it everywhere in the bow PvP community and in general. Anyone using a bow when it came to Season 3 of New World, it's a dilemma of why are my attacks not doing any damage? I have a decent bow, I got decent gear score, sometimes you even have higher gear score, but your bow is just simply not hitting like it used to. Now let me explain why this is happening first, and then I'll get into some reasons and some ways you could remedy it. Now the main reason why bow is in such a bad spot is, of course, we hit 65, which means everybody gets more health, but the bow did not get more damage off of this. Yes, it did scale with level 65, of course, but bow actually has a 14% nerf in all PvP content. I believe this counts for open world, even wars, many other things. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but it says right here, in PvP, you are getting 14% reduced damage on the bow. And that's really bad. It wouldn't be that bad because I understand OPR got renamed to Bow PR, and ranged is annoying. I get it from the melee perspective, how annoying range can be, but now when you come to fights where it's range versus range, it feels like bow is severely outclassed by fire staff, almost even ice gauntlet at this point, and that's kind of tragic. But right now, musket is just simply out damaging the bow tenfold because it could scale off of dex and it could scale off of intelligence for even more damage. The bow is very secluded to just scaling off of dex, and right now the diminishing returns on going over 350 dex are just insane. The second you go over 350 dex, you are getting 2% damage, I believe, per 50 points spent. I don't know. I got this off of the New World Reddits and a little bit of info from the New World forums. I don't know if this is 100% accurate, but in my testing, if you just simply go from 350 dex and look at the number, and then go to 400 dex and look at the number, it's actually very, very sad how much damage you get past 350. So it's not even worth going past 350, but the bow has nothing else to build off of. The build doesn't have a secondary scaling attribute into another thing like musket does. So musket players can do 300 dex in the musket and still get great benefits by going to 200 or 250 intelligence and hit for so much damage, but the bow is literally just dex. There's nothing else the bow can scale off of, and that is another problem. So the first problem is the 14% PvP nerf. The second problem is the dex scaling and how terrible it is going past the cap now, and it has no other viable options in terms of attributes. But it doesn't end there. The bow also got nerfed because of the new perks they added to the game. Reduce damage while you're under grits, reduce damage to thrust conditioning, and you take less thrust damage after you're hit with thrust, and that stacks on the health perks because even more health on top of the level 65 change, and we have more con points, so people are going to be tankier, and people have learned by now with the metas that they want to run thrust resistance because of how annoying bow players can be, but now it's almost borderline laughable how much damage bow players are doing in comparison to Season 2. I'm not trying to sound like an entitled dex player because I'm not trying to be, but I think it's kind of ridiculous that with a very, very good bow heavy attacking with all the empower in the world that you could imagine, you're hitting medium armors for like 2,000 damage. The amount of work that has to go into your bow for it to hit a decent amount is actually ridiculous compared to any other weapon in the game right now. More specifically, any other ranged weapon in the game takes way less effort to be hitting big numbers with compared to the bow. For the fourth problem with the bow is if we go into our weapon mastery and go to the bow, none of this really matters anymore. Rapid shot is just light attacks. It's spamming light attacks, and even with rapid pen shots, you're gonna maybe go through a little bit of their armor if you have the 33% on the weapon, but if they're running any sort of healer or defiant stance, that means absolutely nothing, or if they have any sort of fortify, it doesn't mean anything. Pen shot might be an exception because it hits for a heavy attack equivalent up to 15% more than a heavy attack, but I mean, it really depends. And then evade shot's damage is just laughable at this point. It's less than a light attack, 10% weaker than a light attack, so you're not using this for damage whatsoever. This is clearly a utility ability, and we're only left with 3 abilities after that. We're left with Poison Shot, which is a damage over time, Rain of Arrows, which is a damage over time, and Explosive Arrow, which is a, say it with me, damage over time. We have a Fire proc, a Bleed proc, and a Poison proc, and most people do not resist these things. Most people do not run Invigorated. Most people don't care about all that. And at the end of the day, it's going to be a lot more damage if you could cycle these dots with a long duration and then switch to the bow to tickle them a little bit because it technically equates to more damage than it was before. And this is where we transition into the solutions because we have all these perks in the game that make thrust basically useless in most cases, and we're already used to running the elemental split gem, so that's really not that big of a deal. But now we're kind of forced as bow players, if you're going against somebody, because I know there's already comments in this video, everyone's already pissed. The professional bow players are like, oh my god, you don't know how to use bow, you're just stupid. If you're running best in slot bow with best in slot bruiser, knowing damn well that you're using thrust damage, he's going to run thrust. He's going to be running health, thrust conditioning, the 9 yards. Even if he's just running Onyx with a little bit of thrust resistance, it's still going to help him if he has Enchanted Ward. Let's say he has 10% thrust resist, which isn't even a lot nowadays. 10% on a bruiser is already making your heavy attack hit for 140%. And on top of that, if he has Enchanted Ward on his armor, which stacks up to another 20%, your heavy attack is only hitting for 120% as is. And on top of that, he could get health on his armor, and you're doing even less overall damage to him, to the point where it's almost laughable. Once again, let's go into our first helpful thing. If you're running bow right now, use damage over time. I'm not saying this to get it nerfed. I'm not saying this because it's the meta, but it technically is the meta right now. The thing that's wrong with bow is that direct damage cannot compete with the amount of resistances and the amount of HP that is currently in the game. If they have a healer that could easily take off your debuffs, or even these dots are actually easily counterable. It's just nobody's going to do it because nobody wants to waste slots on Invigorated while their healer can just heavy attack through them and get rid of all your debuffs for you. And it's very unfortunate because I have a lot of fun with the bow, but it's in a really, really bad spot right now. And unless somebody could prove me wrong with actual like evidence and going against best in slot people and you're hitting like a truck, maybe I'm wrong. But in my experience playing this patch for a week now, basically with minimal sleep because I'm just trying to grind out this game and see how things are going, the bow hits like a Nerf blaster. And it's just weird, man. But with dots is where dots get really, really strong. And you guys need to utilize this to your advantage because bleeds are very situational to get resisted and not a lot of people pay attention to their damage over time. So you can take advantage of that with the bow, and it does a very good job at doing so. Now, the second solution for actually helping the bow's damage is going to be slotting in damage-specific perks to the bow. Nothing else. No refreshing, nothing like that. No crit chance, no crit damage, because crit is just in the dust right now. Crit's not going to do anything. Especially with the artifact armor. Even if you ran vicious, you're not doing anything with crit damage these days. I did make a video on how to get this exact bow for basically free. I'll actually put it in the top right for you guys right about now. Check it out after this video, or right now if you really want to go, just go get this bow. But right now, this bow is one of the most optimal bows in the game because you have Enchanted, which is just more damage by 5% regardless of what you're doing, light and heavies. A Boreal Attunement is 14% damage for free on top of a damage over time. And then Keenly Jagged is a 10% bleed for 6 seconds. It's just more damage linked to the item itself. It's not unnecessary perks that you could put on your armor at a lower percentage. You need your bow to have all damage perks. Before, in Season 2, this wasn't a requirement. This was just a very nice thing to have and it made you that more powerful. These days, I feel like you need damage specific perks on your bow right now, or it's just not worth it. It's not worth the time. And this is going to drastically affect how bow is played in wars. I mean, bow was never really in wars to begin with, but now I really don't even see a place for it. Maybe for a kill squad, but group AoE bow is definitely taking a hit here, even though it's really good. If you could extend the bleeds with the many other things. I'm actually going to post a build video on the finisher and a whole deck setup, as you can probably see by my gear right here. I'm farming to it. It's going to be posted really soon on my channel, so if you want to subscribe, stick around for that. I will be posting it probably within a few days, so you guys could experience a really amazing bleed build that's better than Void Gauntlet right now. Dare I say that? Yes, this 10 times better than Void Gauntlet bow. It's amazing. Another thing that's going to be a necessity is a ring perk that I don't have right now, which is the 7.1% thrust damage, because you're going to need to make up for the resistance with your damage once again. I've been running the old 5% one. It helps out a little bit, and I have noticed a drastic difference the second I took it off, and it's pretty dang bad. You're going to need thrust damage on your ring, no questions asked, unless they make changes. And this is a part of the video where I say, I don't know if bow is going to get any changes in recent updates. And just so you know, these target dummies are shooting somebody that's naked. This isn't actually attacking someone that's like heavy armor or anything. But that's really the state of the bow right now, is just getting those dots onto targets and making them pay. And that's my only advice. That's my advice from playing bow for a week straight on the new update on New World. And if you have any other bow advice, if I'm wrong with a few things, please let me know in the comments down below, as I think everyone here is open to more criticism and seeing how to make the bow better. Because I even talked to Arrow, dude, and he said the bow just, light attacks aren't worth your time. If you're light attacking with the bow, you're better off just doing anything else. Drink a potion, do an emote next to them, because light attacks are just terrible and heavy attacks are subjectively not too much better. It's really all in the abilities with bow right now. But if you did enjoy today's video, make sure you hit that like on it, as it does spread out my New World content to more people in the community. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss out on another video from me. I'm posting a really amazing bleed build within a few days, so stick around for that, and I'll see you guys later.